music is a character in your movie. It could lift a scene to a comedic area that, you know, you could be having a dramatic moment and it could be funny just based on the music, or it could be completely inappropriate. But I believe it's got to be in at the very, very beginning, the relationship that you have with the composer.
There's certain categories that when you hire a composer, you think traditionally that the composer is going to score the film. He's going to provide the underscore. He's going to punctuate the dramatic moments. He's going to really support the film from a dramatic, a cinematic standpoint. But every film, at least that I've worked on, and I've done 20 films now, always has source music. And what is source music? We call source music anything that is something that maybe the actors are actually hearing on the set. The characters are hearing in the show. It's music coming out of the radio. It's a record player where the needle drops. I just did a film where they actually had a record spinning and they dropped the needle, and I had to write the music for the music that was actually coming off that record player. So that's source music. Sometimes there's what's called a feature performance where the music is performed to dance or some kind of, you know, action that's going on, and that's considered source as well. The composer's generally hired to score the underscore, and typically the composer may or may not provide source music. In this day and age, most of us composers are pretty savvy about source music. A lot of times we come from bands, we have rock music, we have combos, we have a lot of variety of different music that may be pre-recorded or that we can even write for the film. So I think the director needs to think in terms of being open and allowing the composer to bring something new to the table, even that the director has not even thought of. Because your composer is going to be thinking a lot about the story and the drama and the film, and musically how to address these kinds of problems that may be in the film, how to support certain transitions that you need, and again, how to provide kind of a glue that's going to wrap that whole film around and you know, let that whole thing gel together.
I have to admit that because things went so smoothly during production, with everybody creative and hardworking as they are, that they approached the project more as they were the artisans and I was the one with the so-called vision. And I can't say that necessarily that spoiled me, but that did make me think that, well, the composer would be the same way too. And what Chris Farrell reminded me of, not quite so politely, but you know, in the end I'm glad he did, was that a composer is just as much an artist as a director. I mean, indeed, everybody can be just as much as an artist as a director. But for him, it was very much his role, he felt, was to create something that was his reaction to the film, that wasn't just what I wanted or what I thought I wanted, but how he saw the film, how he saw the characters, how he saw the story. And that really kicked my ass, to be honest, because all of a sudden I had to take a step back and realize that, hey, I'm not necessarily the only person who knows what's right for this film.
Dramatic language and communication is really the key here. That somehow the composer and the director have to come on common terms and be able to speak each other's language, or at the very least have some way to communicate dramatically what's going on. As a composer, I tend to want to know everything about the filmmaking process. So, you know, and most composers I know are this way as well, that we can sit and rap with the director all day long about, you know, two shots, and, you know, we know the terminology, we've been on sets, we know post-production, we know the process, we know distribution, we know hopefully the whole business. So we have a language that we can talk in terms of what the director knows. Frequently, though, the director feels very uncomfortable because they don't quite fully know how to express themselves. They may say something, and in my mind I immediately go, oh, that's going to be a stopped French horn sound, I think would work perfect for that, where the director may not know that, or really he shouldn't have to know that. The director should be able to communicate to the composer in terms of how do we want the audience to feel? What's the drama here? What emotion does the music need to play here to enhance the drama? And I think if a director talks in those terms, he's going to be well served with his composer, because the composer will pick up on that and understand. You know, you want to talk in terms of texture, lightness, heaviness, thicker, fatter. You know, you'll talk in terms of maybe representative scores. One of the things that I do as well is that to help bridge this communication gap that occurs sometimes is I'll work with a first-time director, and maybe we'll spend a whole day listening to music. I have a nice music library. Most composers I know have a pretty good music library. And we can start doing like a listening session, and what we'll do is we'll listen to different styles of music, and we'll say, well, how does this feel? How does this fit? And suddenly now the director has a frame of reference that he can get into in terms of trying to put a framework around the kind or the approach of style of music that he wants to bring to this film. And as soon as you can kind of come up with that, I think that's probably the most important part of kicking off a project is determining the approach, the style of the film. ASCAP and BMI are, and there's a third one called CSAC, are the performing rights organizations. We call them PROs. They have been established to basically collect royalties. They basically collect money for public performance of music. And this could be not only film music, but certainly for radio, and pop stars, rock stars, and so forth all participate, as well as composers. Composer decides to join one of these three organizations, and you join as a writer member, and you join as a publishing member. And as the project that you've worked on, and you work on a film, it's shown on television, it's going to generate revenues, money that's paid by the networks to ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC for the licensing right to have that music performed. Okay, well, there's an excellent book that David Bell has written called Getting the Best Score for Your Film. I believe it's still in print. Samuel French usually carries it, and I've always recommended this as a terrific resource and guide to kind of cover soup to nuts working with composers, and a lot of the issues we've already talked about, and goes into a lot more detail as well, but I find it a terrific resource, and I think you'll find it valuable.